They say it's important to dress for the job you want. And on Sunday, Arsenal dressed like Spurs and got that result. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, Black Managerial Gunner. Dress for the job you want. We apparently wanted the job of being Spursy. And we got the job. We got the job. Now, look, very, very good cause, the No More Red Shirts support, ending or raising awareness for and hoping to stamp out knife crime, knife violence. Obviously very important. So we support that here on the pod, obviously. But you dress like Spurs, pretty soon you are Spurs. And I would just say that maybe there's a different shirt that can support that cause that doesn't make us all think of that loathsome club that we aped on Sunday. We're going to talk a little bit about the game. We're going to talk a little bit big picture. I think it is a difficult one to discuss because there's the way we played, and then there's the result we got, and then there's the fact that it's a second consecutive home loss and a third consecutive loss, and there's a lot of frustration building. And I think that frustration is understandable and justified, but it doesn't always make for the clearest analysis of what actually happened. Now, here's the good news. I got Clive here. I'm going to introduce him in a moment. I will say that that it seems like everybody globally is sick right now. Everybody I talked to asked a couple of people if they wanted to be on the pod today. And unless they just didn't want to be on the pod today, because why would you after a third consecutive loss and an FA Cup exit? Everybody's sick. Tim is recovering from a sickness, but his voice hasn't come back yet, but he'll be back very soon. Paul is away, but thankfully healthy. So we can keep our fingers crossed that stays status quo. But here with me now, the man who cannot get sick, who can literally go for a walk through the cold of winter, come back, not just more thoughtful, more intelligent, but also healthy as an ox. His name is Clive. You can find him on Twitter, ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you about this game because I watched it live. Obviously, I connected to the emotion of it very strongly. I found myself exceptionally frustrated and my sort of left brain and right brain at war with each other to understand how to contextualize it and think about it. You were celebrating your mother's 80th birthday, so happy 80th birthday to her, of course. And that meant that you had to watch it cold, without the emotion, knowing what happened, understanding the context of the frustration that's out there in the wake of this. And I think maybe even more than usual gives you the ability to analyze it, I think, in a more clear-headed way. So I'm excited to hear, well, excited might be too strong a word, but I'm very eager to hear how you may be connected to this game differently and what you thought of it.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously when I'm at the party, scrolling on the phone a little bit,
and, just a bit,
and yeah, it was people were frustrated, but I mean, I did catch the first 10 minutes live, and then had to disappear. And the first 10 minutes, mate, I'm thinking happy days. Seriously, I'm looking at this thinking, well, we're doing everything right. This is just like great. And but then when I watched it this morning, that first chance was really important.
The Nelson one, where Ramsdale just goes long to Nelson.
Yeah. I think that was so important for the day. I think it's not just the miss, it's what it uncovers. And it uncovered a lack of conviction and hesitancy about the next thing that you do. And the ball gets clipped. Now, first things first, he makes a run we haven't seen for a while, have we, from our left-handed side player. He makes a different run, out to in behind the centre forward. That's the sort of thing we have to do more of. Vary our runs. Don't just stick positional play. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so exciting, something different. He runs through, should have lobbed him straight away. Misses his first touch. Then has a heavy second touch. Goes around the keeper. Has a heavy second touch. Gets to the byline. He's got two white shirts running in. And he's got a difficult slot right in the byline. I'm not saying that the passes were easy for the cutback, because they weren't. But that was the right thing to do. And then see what happens from there on in. And he kicks it past the near post, which you can't do. That's the least option you can do. And the camera flashes to his face. And when I saw his face, I've gone, you weren't sure, mate. You weren't sure about what you were doing. And that youthfulness and callowness under pressure is almost where we are. And so, the same thing that we how can we say, the same thing that lifted us all to a place where I uttered the words, is one of my most favourite seasons, if not my most favourite season. And part of that was not just what we did, but it's how we did it and who we did it with, and how young they were. That same youthfulness is something that when things are mentally challenging, it looks challenging for some of these players. Do you know what I mean? That makes sense, Elliot?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I heard your IR, you asked your moment, and that was my moment. You could encapsulate a lot from that first move.
Yeah, and I think, let's be clear. I want to give Reece Nelson a pass here. He's an Arsenal Academy kid. He rounds the keeper. He looks up. He can't pass to white shirts. That's hard coded in his DNA not to do that. No, I'm kidding. That is a big moment. And there were several moments like that in the first half. And there's a lot of frustration out there. And I want to be careful because I don't want to come across as suggesting in any way on this episode that the frustration is not warranted, that the frustration is not real, and that there isn't cause for it. I don't want to be in the position of telling people their frustration is wrong. 3 losses in a row out of a cup that is historically tied to our club and an important opportunity for silverware for this group. All the frustration is valid. I just want to try to get to the locus of what's actually wrong so we can maybe cut through the feeling, because it is hard to know how to zoom out at a time when you've lost 3 games in a row. And so I want to try to strike a balance there. One thing I want to do is talk about the manager changes. You know, it is an interesting thing I find in football. And I'm not sure, I think it's unique to football. I'm not sure this happens as much in any other sport as it does in football. But when a team doesn't win, the manager is immediately the one who gets a lot of the ire and comes under fire. But I have to say, at the moment, I think the ire belongs with the players, because the players aren't doing it. And they aren't doing it in the critical moments that win games. You just picked one moment. There are several others we can pick in this game. I mean, Havertz, so many chances to make the difference. Gabriel has a header to make the difference. Saka has moments in front of goal. Nelly beats Trent Alexander-Arnold to the byline twice, can't pick out a cutback. There's that one moment where we have a high ball recovery. We get into the box. It's cut back to Nelson. That's taken off his foot. Odegaard hits the bar. There were so many moments. And ultimately, the irony is Liverpool weren't any better in front of goal. They got an own goal. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, the talking points are what they are. But I want to focus on something the manager did in this game that I think is interesting in terms of what it might mean for how we play the next few games. He did add a string to his bow, I thought, in terms of his setup for this game, Clive. I don't think we've seen much of this anytime recently that I can think of. You criticized him on this podcast for the position he put Kivior in against Fulham. I think rightly criticized him. Well, he heard you. He listened. We went to a 4-2-3-1. I think Klopp called it a 4-2-2, whatever you want to call it. It was more of a flat back four, 2 holders, right? Jorginho and Rice sitting more like a double pivot. Kivior got to play more of a traditional fullback. And at least in the first half, I thought it worked wonders. We had more of the play. Kivior wasn't exposed. Now, granted, there was no Mohamed Salah to expose him, but still dangerous players out there. And I thought it really worked. I thought it looked good. Our high press was winning the ball back. What do you think of that particular innovation, if we might see it again, and if you think it worked pretty well in the absence of Zinchenko?
Yeah, the listener knows what I'm going to say. I like this system, and I do think the Declan Rice question around whether we make him a 6 or a 6/8 is still a question for me, and it's not a problem because he's 24 and he's on our books and he can do all the jobs, right? So we just got to decide what we need him to do on a particular day. But against the big teams, I like him in this role. I like him to go and hunt people in the opposition's half and go and create things from there. And he did that really, really well. Obviously, there's Jorginho's not the future for us in as Declan Rice's partner. And as we record, there are rumours today about Amadou Onana. Sorry, I'm getting the right name.
Hopefully not Andre Onana. We've got enough goalkeeper issues.
Yeah. Thank you. Getting that mixed up. And so yeah, and people don't want to hear that today, but you can see the future there, and you can see what could happen for an Arsenal midfield. And so I like that setup, and I did like I like a 6 and 4 rather than 5+5. If that makes sense, Elliot. I want to see our 4 given freedom to go and to really rotate and move. So I prefer that. And when there's occasions to have a 5 up, then we've got the players to do that, hopefully going forward. So yeah, I liked it. Liked what we did. Liked our aggression. What I really noticed from watching it, and it was once we won the ball, you've got a line in front of you, and you've got the option to go back. And a lot of occasions, people were splitting the line to go forward very, very quickly. And I thought it created a momentum, particularly early on. And I really like some of our decisions. You know, when you're running backwards towards your own goal, there's a square pass that's difficult between two players, or there's an easy pass back to Saliba. People are taking the square pass, you know, and then we are turning around and going forward. And I really like that. So I'm looking at our possession decisions. I'm looking at our pressing decisions. And I'm looking at our speed to really run into the box, you know, particularly from Saka and Odegaard and Havertz. I'm thinking, oh my God, she's great. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the goal, and it didn't happen. And I want to say something. Why isn't it happen? Why do we all feel this sense of doom once the chances don't hit the back of the net? Because we all know that mentally, every chance we miss is affecting us as fans, and it's affecting the players. And we feel less certain as time goes on in a game when we haven't scored that we are going to score. And people don't want to hear it, but this has become a mental problem. So let me give you a bit more context to this. When you're training a set of players, you're training and you're doing finishing drills, sometimes goalkeepers goes down to the floor. You always hear a coach say, finish it anyway. Get into good habits. Do the job. Finish it. The one game that I think allowed some of this sloppiness to become part of our identity at the moment, because everyone knows the numbers, I'm sure you're gonna quote them later on, was Aston Villa. Aston Villa was the day when I felt sloppiness crept into our selections around the last third. We missed some big chances in that game, not just in front of goal, but to get ourselves in front of goal. And I thought it was wrong. I thought it was sloppy. And what happened then? Things have crept into us. And the light has turned. It's turned away from our goalkeeper. It's turned away from the shininess of Declan Rice. It's turned away to the top end of the pitch. And the light is on them. As the light gets brighter, I'm sorry, the mentality of our players to deal with that, their intention is superb. Everything is on it, apart from the Fulham game, which we're going to scratch, right? Everything is on it. But what we are not seeing is we're not seeing a real conviction. And that's because you let sloppy habits get into your DNA, into your mindset. Now you're starting to think. Your first touch is now tentative, and it's not setting up your second touch. You're not taking things without a touch. You're taking things on 3 touches. When that happens, we're giving up blocks. How many block shots have we had starting with West Ham? The only reason that happens is because you're giving someone a chance to get back in. So it's down to us and our conviction to play. And we've lost a little bit of that. Well, we've lost a lot of it, Elliot. Should we go for the numbers? I mean, we've lost a lot of it. Everyone knows them, don't they?
Yeah. Let's wind back for a minute to the game just for a second, because I just want to ask you something that I think is the easiest question you can ask somebody about a game. Let's start with the first half. Do you think we played well?
Yeah, I do. I think we played well. I thought most aspects of this game, I thought we played really well, apart from the last aspect, right, which was the end point.
Yeah, I thought we played great. No one wants to hear that. Like, the frustrating thing about a loss is there's sort of a way you're supposed to talk about a loss, I think, that is the accepted way to talk about it. And that is, anger, disappointment, outrage, frustration. I have all those emotions, but we played great in the first half. Liverpool are the top team in the league right now, and we soundly outplayed them. I would say over the last 2 games we played against Liverpool, I have no problem with the way we played them. I don't think they were superior to us really in any long-term phase of the game, and I think overall we were fine. And I think in this game in the first half we were fine. They made adjustments in the second half, and I think they came back into it more, although I will point out, setting the Diaz chance aside, the Diaz chance doesn't count. And you say, of course it counts. The reason it doesn't count, it's a cup tie. You're into the last minute of stoppage time. You should lose 2-0 You should, because you should be trying to make it 1-1 so much that you either get to 1-1 or lose 2-0. I mean, our keeper went up for the set piece before that, so I don't have a problem with that. But we had the
There was
biggest
the other
chances in the
Diaz
second half
chance,
too.
though, wasn't there? There was the other Diaz chance that led to the Ramsdale save, which was super sharp.
Yeah.
Super sharp.
That was super sharp. But again, the biggest chances of the second half, at least that I was jotting down.
Yeah.
I don't have the specific data in front of me, but if you go to them, we had the Kai cross that deflects to Saka and he mishits it when Gabriel probably could have headed it.
Yeah, I watched that today, and okay, listener will tell me if I'm right or wrong, right? But the commentators may be leading me down this path, but I wonder if Saka called for it, because that move was beautiful, and the easier chance was for Big Gabby to head that in, and he seemed to, either he thought he's going to get smashed, or he seemed to half pull out. And I haven't seen all the angles, but that to me was a big moment in this game. You know, the first moment with Nelson, the Odegaard hit the bar, and that one was for me the three that really stood out.
Yeah, and then there was the really clever set piece, free kick, where was it Odegaard plays it to Kai. Kai stands it up at the back post, and Saka just blazes it over.
That's the one I was talking about, Elliot. Sorry, we're getting mixed. That's the one I was talking about, where Gabriel comes for it.
Is that where Gabriel's coming in?
Yeah, and he leaves it, and Saka blazes it over the bar.
So what was the one? There's one where Kai, is it Kai crosses? There's one where it deflects. It's a Kai cross, 61st minute, and it deflects to Saka right into his path in the 61st minute. I wonder if it's on one of these sites that I can look at, because I thought it was a big chance. Here we go. Big miss Saka, 67 minutes. I'm going to do the Arsblog thing here of watching this live. So we're building up well. Odegaard out wide. It goes to Martinelli. Oh, no. Actually, sorry. It's a Martinelli cross that deflects, and it lands at the boot of Saka, and he just blazes over. In fact, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the, oh no, what am I talking about? That's the, good one, Elliot. That's the Fulham game. Never mind. Moral of the story is it was very similar to that. He mishit it. I tried to do the Arsblog thing of narrating that live and got it horribly wrong. So I won't enter his lane. I will stay in my lane in the future. But I guess my point is, if I had one to begin with, that I thought overall we played pretty well. I think Liverpool made adjustments in the second half, as they will. They're a great team. They're well coached. I thought some of those adjustments worked really well. They did get some chances themselves, certainly. And it was a pretty good cup tie in general, punctuated by a lot of actual poor play in the boxes by both teams. I thought we didn't finish our chances. Liverpool certainly were not executing in our box either. And it made for one of these cup ties where I think both teams, whichever team didn't win it, was going to probably come away lamenting the moves that didn't come off. But once again, it's Arsenal lamenting those moves the most, and that's really been the story for us. I want to go bigger picture on a lot of this, but I do want to talk a couple of things specific to the game. So the first thing I want to say is the Ramsdale thing. First of all, do you have Ramsdale at all at fault on their goal? I've seen people say he came and didn't get anywhere near it. It's fantastic delivery from Trent, which you expect. I thought it was pretty petulant from Odegaard to give away that foul, to be honest. But other than that, I thought Ramsdale did well. Obviously, he kicked long twice to create chances. He had a really good save that you mentioned already where he got down smartly. But some people have him culpable for the own goal. What do you think?
I don't see that. I think Kivior gets pushed out by Diaz out of the box, and he comes back in. And he sort of, as the defender's coming back in, he was just half a fraction off from heading it away. He headed that in. I felt bad for him, really, because you can see that he's not at the top level of his confidence. He's taking very conservative options on his clearances. He was better in this game, a lot better. I think both our fullbacks have become silent almost. We can't see them. We can see our centre backs, but we got disappearing fullbacks. They're just gone. They're not doing anything right, not doing anything wrong. You know, they disappeared though, and they're a big part of our play. And so, yeah, I felt for him. You're thinking, when I heard it had been own goal, I just thought to myself, oh, please don't make that be Kivior. And it was. You're thinking you don't want it to be him, because he's the one that's really trying to get in and create a reputation for himself. And that just allows people who are not having him to not have him, Elliot. Do you see what I mean? And he's a player that we're still trying to work out. Very young player, and I do wonder if he's settled correctly. And it looks like a player that needs rhythm. Inactivity does not suit his body type and mentality. I think it takes him a couple of games to get going. And he's better in this game than the last one, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting watching Ramsdale, right? I think what it reminds me is we made a decision in the summer to address a position that I think could be a 1% improvement in our season, in our performances, at the expense of sort of good vibes and squad harmony and fan connection, and then just left an area of the pitch that could have given us 15, 20% improvement, the attacking line, untouched. And we'll have plenty of time over the next 2 weeks to be talking about this. But I think if anyone wanted to criticize the project, TM, I still firmly believe that this project has been built on trying to develop control and security, and we've done that effectively, and we've acquired some excellent players, but it's at the expense of properly strengthening the forward line. And at a time when our forward line is not performing, we don't have the players to turn that around or give them rest, because Bukayo Saka, for example, 0 for 5 on dribbles in this game, 1 for 5 on dribbles in each of the last 2 games. That's 2 for 15 in his last 3 games. That to me says fatigue. But what can you do but play him? Because there's nobody else. And I think that is a bit of a holding up a mirror to the project in terms of how we've opted to build this. And the irony is Liverpool is the perfect mirror, because Liverpool has just said, just keep buying guys that kick the ball in the goal, and that's kind of worked out for them. Your thoughts on that, Clive?
Yeah, it's worked out so far. Let's see how we go, shall we?
Yeah,
so
of course. Yeah.
My view is, and again, I'm just trying to explain why the club has gone this direction. On the goalkeeper thing, you know my thoughts there, Elliot. I'm very much in I get it from a football principle point of view, but I feel goalkeeper is a very emotional position. I think it's emotional to the centre backs. I think there has to be a connection there. And the goalkeeper, rightly or wrongly, is the guy who's closest to the crowd. And I've got used to the fact that our goalkeeper has a great connection with the crowd. And I think it's an important emotional position. People can say, well, yes, Clive, but he's a fifth defender, and I get it. And I understand the football side of it. I do. But I don't know. I'm just not comfortable with that whole thing. When you look at a team, we look at a squad, we always go to the weakest point in our analysis. Last year, when the Man City team sheet home game was read out and Thomas Partey was injured, our hearts just sank. We had to go into that game without him because we knew he was a critical player. We've covered that up now. Declan Rice plays. Thank goodness we spent the money on Declan Rice, because with Partey's fitness, we don't look at midfield as a problem, because Declan Rice was doing 2 jobs, right? So we just don't look in that area. The extra years to Saliba and Gabriel, we don't look there anymore. Ben White's been fairly steady. We have an issue with left-back rotation potentially because of injury and inconsistency. But we're sort of all right there, if particularly when Tommy comes back, right? So, and then you look at the front end of the pitch. You say, we spent money on Kai Havertz. Now, when you bring Kai Havertz in, you're saying to yourself, okay, this player's coming to our group. But for many people, when you bring a player like Havertz in, there's a lack of clarity about his best position, best role. So you're bringing that person into a team from a rival club for a decent chunk of change that you're not sure about what his best role is, into a team which, when it's winning, is fine. When we're not scoring, your eyes go straight to that person, because it's like last man in. Do you see what I mean? Last man in. He's the first one to get fired. It's like at work, the first one to get made redundant, last man in. And so he's one where the light is shining on. Now, from the manager, just trying to explain it from the manager's point of view, he's thinking, I need to solidify the team. But what I also need to do is just make sure that I have this group of young attackers. So am I saying that these young attackers are not good enough? So the 22-year-olds, Odegaard, Jesus, they're young, they're going to develop on. They exceed their XG last year. They're going to develop on. I'm going to invest in them by giving them opportunities to play. Now, we can debate whether we supported them or not, but I can see why they're thinking these guys are going to kick on again. They're going to kick on again, and they haven't quite. Now, when you are Arsenal and you attack in a collective way, one of the reasons why I've always liked that sort of philosophy, Elliot, when you have 4 or 5 people getting 10, 15 goals, is that when any one person is injured, you don't lose your system. And it de-risks you. What's really crazy about this situation is the whole collective in our front end of our pitch has gone cold at the same time, either gone cold, lost conviction, or injured. And that is, as a manager, you're trying to manage risk. And so you de-risk with your style and your system, and then your whole front end, all your rotation has just gone freezing cold at the same time. So what do we do as fans? Get a bleeding striker in. Do you see what I mean? And the 88 goals or 89 goals we scored last year via collective way, that's been chucked. So are we saying these young players, we no longer believe in them? Or are we saying we just want to add another one? If you add another one into this mentality group, what's he going to do? So we have to find that from within. We have to find somebody who's not going to pass the ball off, but take the shot. Take the shot first time. Don't worry about hitting a standing leg. Take it. Don't go away from your good habits. Take the shot with conviction. You know my favourite shot of that first half? Ben White's shot. When he came running in first time and he locked his ankle and smashed it. I thought, there you go. Very similar to Trent's shot. Trent's shot would hit the bar. He wasn't messing about, was he? He just hit the shot straight through. And I thought, we need more of that. We need more of Ben White's example, conviction, when we're taking our shot. You take a bit of anger, you take a bit of intensity, and you go to score. You do not mess about. I think it's so interesting the journey we're on. Remember, Elliot, in the first part of the season when we were talking about Odegaard? He's taking too many shots. Now he's passing the ball off square when he should be shooting. This stuff matters. I was always happy with him taking shots, always, apart from on his right foot from 100 yards out. I was always happy because that's the mentality we want. Take your shot, take your moment, apologise after. If it doesn't go in. People said, oh, his numbers are low on creativity. That's bollocks, mate. It's rubbish. Take your shot if you got it on your left foot. Don't let bad habits get into your brain, because then you start to lack clarity in your last action. And that is exactly what we have done, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, nobody, when people are in their emotions, nobody wants to be particularly analytical, and I get that. But just throwing this out there, in our last 3 games, Liverpool in the Cup, Liverpool in Fulham in the league, and West Ham in the league, we have 6.5 expected goals to 2.5 expected goals allowed. 6.5 to 2.5. The results cumulative of those 3 games are 1-6. We've gotten 1 from our 6.5 and 6 from the 2.5 we've allowed. Now, there are some people that are going to say, but we take a lot of shots, but we don't get good shots. Bollocks. It's not true.
Exactly.
It's not. Listen, you can want to say that because you're mad, but you cannot make up facts. And those are simply not the facts. Whether you want to measure it by big chances, which we've had in those games, and I get the Fulham game was a bad performance, and yet there were the chances to either level the game or win the game. I don't think we deserve to win the game on the quality of our play. But setting that aside, the facts are the big chances were there. They were there and they weren't taken. And I think, and I really believe this, that it is okay for fans to not care about XG and not care about data and be emotional about results and care about results exclusively. And I would even say that's the role of the fans to some extent. It's not your job to manage Arsenal or director of football Arsenal, coach Arsenal. It's your job to support Arsenal in whatever way brings you joy and fulfillment and an escape from the rest of your life. But the manager should care about the data, because the data will tell the manager as a guiding light, are you doing the right things at the core level? Is the plan working and not being executed, or is the plan failing? Okay, I would say the plan is working, but the execution is off. Not the plan is failing, it's time to change. And I think that is really, really important, because if I said to you, would you like to see Arsenal continue playing the way they played in the first half against Liverpool, the way they played against West Ham, the way they played most of this season, and hope that our players we think are very good up front turn it around? Or would you like to see us scrap that plan and try something totally different? Is something totally different going to get us playing better? Because I don't regard us as playing badly. And this is where I said nobody wants to hear that after a cup exit, after 3 consecutive losses. It is a bit of the fog of war, right? Where you're in the middle of it. You've just lost 3 games. You're emotional. Everything feels like shit. The goals aren't flying in. And you say, it's all crap. And it feels like it's all crap. But someone's got to be able to get outside that fog and see if it's all crap. And see, we are still in the Champions League with a matchup we can win. We are still just 5 points off the top of the table. We still have underlying metrics that have us as one of the best teams in the league. And if we continue to execute on this plan, either you believe in the talent of our front 3 or you don't. And if you don't, by the way, you might be right. You might be. No one can say for sure that Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus and Eddie Nketiah and Nelson, that is enough up front to win anything big. No one can say for sure because they haven't done it yet. And this season, they sure as hell aren't doing it. But if you believe in the talent, especially of Saka and Martinelli and Jesus and maybe a little bit of a couple of those other guys, then you should believe the plan is working and will work. Now, I can't tell anybody what's going to happen. But this goes back to my point of, like, I understand frustration with the manager. I experience it. But my frustration is largely with the players. And one player I wanted to talk to you about real quick is Kai Havertz, because I thought the decision to play him up front was good. And this is what's hard about football. In some ways, I think Kai Havertz contributed to us looking like the better team. But Kai Havertz also didn't do the stuff that the center, we blame Jesus when he doesn't finish his chances. And we blame players when they don't do the fundamental things. Zinchenko, right? We know he helps our ball progression. But if you can't defend, he gets criticism. Kai Havertz did a lot of the things that made this a good performance, but he didn't kick it in the back of the net. And he blew a lot of moves and chances that could have been good. So how do you evaluate a performance like that from Havertz? We've been saying it'd be nice to see him at center forward. We got to see him at center forward. I think our play looked good as a result. But once again, we're bemoaning a player who didn't execute in the last action.
Yeah, it's at this moment in time, right? We're all looking for that guy that sits in the dressing room, puts his shin pads in, ties up his boots and says, I'm on a goal bonus. Make sure you lot give me the ball, right? Give me the ball in the box and don't wait. I'm making a run. I'm going in front of him. And he's talking to his teammates. I've got a mortgage to pay. Give me that ball. We ain't got no one like that.
You saw what Ian Wright tweeted, right?
No, I haven't. No. What did he tweet?
He just said, we need a killer. He just tweeted, we need a killer. And it feels that simple in some ways, doesn't it?
But we are where I was going with that is, tell me who that player is in our dressing room. Do you think anyone's like tying up their boots thinking, I've got to get my goal bonus today? We're not like that. We're a team of midfielders.
You know who I do?
You've heard me say it before.
I've got an answer for you. I've got an answer for you on that, by the way. I think if you said to me, who's the player who most has that mentality in him, I want to stick 4 of these balls in the back of the net today, I actually think that guy is Gabriel Martinelli, but we don't give him that role. We put him on the touchline and have him run and make him a creator. I'm not saying he'd do it, but he feels like the guy, what you just described of our attackers, that's the guy I think has that mentality.
Yeah, but we're not emphasizing that part of his game. We're not. Right, exactly. We're emphasizing. Back to my point a few weeks ago when I said we are a team of 11 midfielders. I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
And I include our goalkeeper. When I say 11, I mean 11. People that look after the ball like midfielders. But sometimes, at some point, again, we have a collective philosophy, collective defense, collective attack. At some point, when the collective is not working, we yearn for that bloke that doesn't care about nothing else but give me the ball between the white sticks. That's what we're yearning for right now. And it isn't here. And it never was Kai Havertz. It never is Jesus. It's not Saka Martinelli, but although I do take your point. It's not Odegaard, who 15 goals last year. But they have roles around ball retention, continuity, speed of foot, speed of thought, speed of pass, shot. But not one of them, if in their contract, has said, I want 15 grand a goal. because that's going to make up the majority of my wages. Do you know where I'm going with that, Elliot?
Mm.
No one is signed in this club for me to be the primary goal scorer. We are Arsenal footballers that play a collective style of football. And right now, the decision and the thought process that we start to think forward is, do we want somebody that is your attacking system, that can do a little bit of the facilitation, but also cares very, 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 very much about the thing which is the hardest thing in football to do, which is the very last thing. And at this moment in time, we always tend to want what we don't have. And it's probably anyone not listening is saying, we need a centre forward, Clive. It's simple as that. And sometimes it is that simple. We need a centre forward. But I'm conscious, Elliot, we've been here before. If we're going to get out centre forward, we're going to buy him once. We ain't going to buy him twice. He took us 3-4 years to get out of the Lacazette Aubameyang thing, right? At a huge cost to the club, a huge cost to the project. If we're going to do it, let's do it once. Let's do it properly. You know, if you have to wait for that to get 3-4 years of proper football, then I'm prepared to wait. But I'm finding it very hard to turn away from the fact we have a hole in the top end of our pitch that feels big at the moment. I think could be a lot smaller if we find our mentality, but it feels big today. I can't deny it.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of people that feel that the Havertz signing has derailed the project, that it was $65 million that should have been allocated differently. By the way, of the guy you're describing who's just sticking the back of the net, it's probably Eddie Nketiah, right? It's just the level isn't quite what we want. But that's yeah. No, there are people, and like sometimes we say there are people. Look, on the internet, there are people that think everything. There are people that think the Earth is flat, right? So you don't need to engage with every opinion that exists. But I can understand if there are people that look at that signing and say, wow, we made 3 signings this summer, 1 home run, 1 unfortunate injury that looked like it was trending in the right direction, and 1 big signing in a critical area that hasn't quite lit the touch paper for us. And I am sympathetic to that view. I don't know where I stand on it yet. I'm not in judgment mode on it yet, but I confess that I think there were probably alternatives. But if we're going to point the finger there, and I understand why you would, he played center forward for us, had no goals, took 6 shots, and you know, didn't find the back of the net. And I think, you know, he had a big chance missed. But if we're going to point that finger, we have to point it at the players that we also like. Bukayo Saka had 5 shots and a big chance missed.
Can I just stand Havertz for a bit, Elliot? Can I stand Havertz for a bit? Because I thought his centre forward performance as a centre forward in our build-up and availability and retention and pressing was really good. It's just that his shot wasn't there. His power wasn't there. And his header one, oh man.
He never seems there, does it? Does he? Yeah. Have you seen him strike a ball with authority in it? Like he's never smashed one.
You know, and I think back to that Newcastle performance when he was full of fire. And I just think, you know, that's what the fans want to see a bit more of. I mean, I tell you what, that was a sliding doors moment, not getting sent off. Imagine a 3-game ban after that. He then kicked on after that and got Player of the Month, right? So just need a little bit more there. But I saw this. It's almost like you could see the future with this. This is not a wasted game. You may feel it right now, but the systemic changes we made, some of the forward running changes we made, and by saying we're going to look at Kai there, that could be something to facilitate movement in the transfer market. You want to look at something before you make a move. And I don't think, although we didn't score earlier, other people are going to say to me, Clive, you're talking rubbish. We didn't score. And I'm open to that. But I don't think that was a failure to play him there. Do you see what I mean? I don't think it was a systemic failure.
That would have been my pick.
I don't think so. Maybe, and I got a little, for me, I'd have liked to see Trossard play there and then rotate it into that position. I don't know what's happened to Trossard. People just seem to have forgotten him. But I would have gone with him false 9. I would have played Havertz and Rice together and I'd have done it that way around. But I was really interested to see Havertz play there. And I thought he played it well. He just didn't score. But that's a wee thing, isn't it? It's all over the dressing room, isn't it? The goal scoring aspect of our team.
Yeah, I was just making the point that, like, if you want to point a finger at him, and I understand, by the way, you don't have to point a finger at anyone. If you want to identify him as someone who didn't perform in front of goal, you have to at least acknowledge that it's some of our most beloved players that are also simply not doing it at the moment.
Do
It
you
gives
think
me
Saka still
absolutely,
looks like a threat to you? Because to me, threat is important. Because I think he looks
I do.
really threatening. He just can't finish at the moment.
He was 0 of 5 on dribbles. And as I pointed out, in the last 3 games, 2 of 15 on his dribbles. I think he is playing with less dynamism. I think he looks like a player that needs this holiday. And I also think he's doing something that I don't think we've seen him do much in his career, which is, I think he's sort of snatching at chances now. Some of these volleys he's
We
had
all
in the
are.
last few games, just bless. Yeah, and
We've let it
that,
in. We've let in the boogeyman, mate. We've let it into our heads.
yeah,
Now we're thinking
the
about what we're
yips.
doing. This is what I was trying to say to you about my Villa analogy. That's when it started, Elliot. We were better than them. Come on, mate. Think
Yeah.
back to that game. It was ridiculous how we didn't beat them in that game.
And you know what's great about that game as a Rorschach test for your opinion on football is, like, people say we play too slow, we play too ponderous, we don't get in quick enough. Against Villa, we were in quick, we were in direct, we were in behind their line. We did all the things people want us to do because they
Got
didn't sit
sloppy.
deep, and we still didn't execute. So it's like you can't have it both ways. I totally agree with you, Clive. I want to talk young players not coming on just because it's a talking point and it's out there. I want to ask you about it. I don't think we're going to do the Onana rumor. Firstly, because I don't think it'll happen. I don't think there's money for it to happen in January. Um, we've
We don't
got
know
2
the
weeks
plan.
to talk
So we'll
about that if
just,
it heats up.
yeah, we don't know the
You know what
plan.
we'll do?
So let's
We'll do a
let it
scouting
develop.
video for him over on the Patreon. We'll get a look at him. We'll see what we think. I think there's going to be frustration if we sign anyone that's not a goal scorer, but he is certainly a player we might need. And by the way, maybe the funds for that is coming from an unexpected party departure or something like that, something that we don't
We don't
necessarily
know the
foresee
plan.
that's going to happen.
Exactly.
An
Exactly.
Eddie departure to Palace or something that we don't expect. I mean, by the way, Eddie had 1 touch in this game, which I thought was an interesting approach to things. Okay, here's what we'll do. We'll talk young kids not coming on, and I think we also need to talk about, sort of the what happens next, how we turn this around, what the key moments are. Because the other thing we need to confront is Gabriel Jesus has an injury to the knee that was the one that he had the big injury on. The quotes are, we don't think it's big, but there's a scan. I sort of wonder if Kai is starting at 9. Is Mikel saying, I'm a little nervous about this Jesus thing, and I need to see what I've got in Kai up front, which would be a bit scary. But you know what's really scary? Like a thing that I think could keep you up at night, if you think about it, is using a rusty old razor that's been sitting in your shower to shave your privates. That's scary. That's scary. And you don't want to do that. Okay? And according to Manscaped, they give you cheers to the new year and say, because your resolutions shouldn't be the only things that are well kept, 2024 is the time for new heights, new opportunities, and a new look for your Times Square balls. Yep, that's where they went. There's a brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Okay? You can go to manscaped.com, use code ArsenalVision, and get 20% off and free shipping. 20% off free shipping. Here's the thing about the Ultra that's actually really cool. It now has 2 different skin-safe blades. So it's got the standard ceramic blades for taking a little off the top, but it has a foil blade now that can go fully smooth wherever your heart desires. That can be body, by the way, too. I mean, your privates are part of your body. More on Science Corner later. But so if you want to go smooth in other parts of your body, men and women, this is for everybody. I know it's called Manscaped, it's Peoplescaped, let's be honest. And so you can do it. It's waterproof, so you can do it in the shower. It's got a long battery life. Mine's been in the shower for months without having to be recharged, despite the fact that I use it at the appropriate intervals. Now, if you want the full package, you can get the Performance Package 4.0, where you will get the grooming kit, the ear and nose hair trimmer, the aftercare products, okay, and some deodorant, right? So you get all of that. There's the boxers and the shed toiletry bag. So you're going to love everything that's in that package. I think the Lawnmower 5.0 is the perfect tool for doing something that we all do anyway, but we all use terrible tools for it. So just get the right tool in the new year, new you. 20% off and free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. Now, when you are trying to watch match of the day, which recently we wouldn't have wanted to watch, but you're not in England and you can't watch it because you're out of the country, or when you're trying to watch a football match at 3 p.m., God forbid someone should watch a 3 p.m. football match, but you can because you can VPN back to the US where we can watch every match, or wherever you're from. You need a VPN so you can browse in the country that you want to browse in. I use NordVPN. I recommend you use NordVPN. It's this simple. Of all the products that we have offered, Nord is the one I think I get the most requests for the code because people want to get it. And it also has threat protection. It'll remove threats before they get downloaded on your computer. You won't be tracked. You won't have tracking cookies following you around the internet. You can browse from wherever you want, watch Netscape in a different Netscape. I'm 90 years old. Nice to meet you. Watch Netflix in a country outside of your own. See the football matches that you can't see elsewhere. Use your subscriptions when you're out of the country. Okay, NordVPN team did a national privacy test, by the way, and that's something that you can check out over at Nord. But for now, this is the best package they've offered. Okay, so you get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, and you get 4 free months, 4 bonus months, completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can sign up, you get the free months, you can try it, you can cancel anytime if it's not for you. Really good opportunity. Go to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision. That's nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision. Do it now, Clive. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Now, okay. Real quick, one of the things that I think people are starting to suggest is an issue at Arsenal, I think probably without sufficient knowledge, but we might as well bring it up because I think it is a talking point in this game based on what Klopp did, is that Mikel hasn't found opportunities to blood the academy players. He's brought them with him to Champions League, for example. Didn't get a chance to get a run out. In this game, the kids that were on the bench didn't get a chance to get a run out, but 2 youngsters from Liverpool, 20-year-old and 18-year-old, both got on in a game that wasn't decided yet, 0-0 in the FA Cup. They both come on. And yeah, they still wind up winning. So what do you know? He gets 2 kids, a memory that they'll have for the rest of their life, shows that there's a pathway. I can't believe I'm going to give this oxygen, but Amari Hutchinson's brother was Instagramming about, free my fellow youngster. Like, Hutchinson's like 24 or something, right? He's not a kid. He's not playing. He's on the bench at Huddersfield. I don't want to pretend that deserves a lot of oxygen, but I think it's a fair question to say, should Mikel find times to get these kids out there? And I know we want to win every single game, and these guys are under immense pressure. Klopp has a little more experience. He's won big trophies, so maybe he feels more at ease to do what he wants. If they had lost, maybe the fans would be saying, oh, you took Jones and Elliot off, and look what happened. We lost the game. So, it's a lot of outcome-based analysis. But do you think there's any issue there with not finding opportunities to use the kids in certain situations?
Let's take Liverpool's situation first. I mean, they have got a League Cup game in the week. So they're trying to manage the week, shall we say. So I thought that was very smart of them. And I did hear your IR yesterday when you said about the subs coming on, Liverpool didn't want to win it, sort of thing. I thought that was quite funny. But
they didn't want to replay. I don't think they minded winning it, but they didn't. We didn't want to replay either. Let's be clear.
Correct. Yeah. That was the worst result of all. Hey, look, we use Europa League to blood our last set of youth players, shall we say. One has moved on to Newcastle, and the rest are still here, aged between 22 and 24. I think a couple of them are reaching the point where we know the story, I think. And the next set are coming through are 16 and just turned 17. We're not talking 18, 19, 20-year-olds. We're talking 16. Ethan Nwaneri is one of the top 3 16-year-old players in the country. That's well known. But he's 16. That is well known at youth levels. Well known. That's not for people that are really into that stuff, and there are many people that follow Arsenal that are. This is not new news, right? So Miles Lewis-Skelly, another player that's got real potential, both on the England track. We're just waiting for them to mature physically. The level they're trying to get into is not 8th place Arsenal. We're trying to get into Champions League semi-final Arsenal. Do you see what I mean? That's a completely different level. And so we have to be patient there. There was a couple of opportunities. I think we brought Jesus on for the last couple of minutes in one game recently, maybe the PSV game, quite late. I thought, you know what? Could we have brought on Nwaneri for that game? But would that change the world? Or would it just tick a box? I the way I look at the Arsenal fan base last night, and I was coming back from the party, I didn't see a lot of patience in there for development in my timeline. Do you see what I mean? We say we want this stuff, but when they don't do well, we're not having them. Get them out. Do you see what I mean? And so I think we have to be consistent about whether we are prepared to wait to develop or we want things right now. And when we have 3 tough losses in a row, I think there's a feeling that we want the main order priority for me and for many is we want to see the goal scoring return. And then it becomes how are we going to do that, whether it's a coaching development mentality thing or we just get the checkbook out. And I think that's where it's at. You do not want to bring young people into a team where the experienced 200 grand a week people are struggling for their mentality. Why would you want to bring young players into that group? And I don't think that'd be fair on them. It takes 10 years to build someone. Don't take 10 minutes to ruin them. Be patient. Be patient with them. If they are good enough, they will rip the shirts of someone's back and they will have to sell that person. It's as simple as that. And the 2 I've mentioned right now at their age group, they are good enough. And they're going to get their opportunity. Just have to be a bit more patient.
Yeah, and I got to level with you. I don't have the energy to care about whether academy players get a chance or not because I don't know enough about what's in the academy. I think with the exception of a few very careful academy watchers, we mostly lie to ourselves about knowing what's in the academy based on some YouTube comps and some things we read. I would argue that some of the biggest academy players to come through in the last several years have not been the heralded players from the academy. Joe Willock's brother was more heralded than himself. Alex Iwobi was not getting talked about before he broke in. Bukayo Saka, I know there are a lot of people that rated him, but he was not the one that I was regularly hearing about when he broke into the team. We don't know who the next player is going to be necessarily. It's very hard to predict who's going to make it. And while I think you do want to show your academy kids that there's a path to getting into the first team so that they don't feel like there's no hope, we can't pretend to understand what's happening below the surface there. And there is a lot we're playing for that I think is way more important. This feels like a stick to beat the manager with to me. I'm not saying anyone doesn't believe it earnestly, but it feels like that to me because it is a very, very minor thing. I think the biggest thing that should keep academy kids excited right now is the fact that you have an academy kid in Bukayo Saka starring for Arsenal and an academy kid who started against Liverpool and an academy kid who's played 10 times in the Premier League at striker and Eddie Nketiah. If there's one thing Mikel has shown, if he hasn't blooded academy kids maybe as much as you might like, he's shown that he wanted to keep Nelson. He's shown that he wanted to keep Nketiah. And the irony is that's the thing people wish he hadn't done necessarily.
You've been
right?
almost
So
overly patient with some of those.
Yeah, he's too
really
patient with the yeah. So, you can look at that through multiple prisms. There's a lot of frustration with Mikel right now. And you know what? That's just how it works when you lose 3 in a row and you crash out of the cup. It is frustrating that we crashed out of the cup. Having said that, we crashed out of the cup to Liverpool in a pretty good performance where I thought our tactical plan worked and we missed chances. And that's football. And so, if we produced the Fulham performance against Liverpool again, I think I'd be a lot more outraged today. But I want our players who are on the pitch to finish their chances. Right now, they can't finish their dinner. So, it's a tough one. I will ask you one last thing on this game specifically, which is just the decision to wait till the 88th minute to bring on Trossard and Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe is one of those guys that people have a lot of time for, and I think really want to see given chances. And I understand it because we all remember a time when it looked like he was something special. I mean, this is a guy who scored 10 Premier League goals in a season.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's so long ago that, we're not entirely sure what Smith Rowe is. We just think we know. Were you frustrated that substitution happened so late in the game?
I think they scored quite late, didn't they? 80 odd minutes, and we made a substitution straight away. Jorginho came on for Eddie, was it? I think almost immediately when the goal was getting in. And
yeah, they scored an 80-minute own goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was 88 minutes when Smith Rowe and Trossard came on. Eddie came on right away, 81st minute.
Right away. Could you have done all 3 at the same time? Could you have done them all at the same time? You could have done. But maybe they weren't ready. And you got to give them time to get ready. Right? So people forget that. Right? So maybe Eddie was always going to come on and it was like, okay, do we want to win the game? and then suddenly they score. Eddie, you're coming on. You two get ready. Do you see what I mean? And that's how sometimes it goes. When you're a fan, you're sitting there, you say, hey, why are they coming on now? Why they were maybe it's just little details like that. It would have been nice potentially now we knew what had happened that they were all ready to come on at the same time. Smith Rowe's a difficult one, right? Because I think there's so many unknowns about him, about his potential. I think we can all see it. And it's undiscovered, shall we say. It's undiscovered over a longer period of time. Mikel tried to bed him in, tried to feed him in, give him his Premier League start, and straight away he's injured and out for a month. And again, we don't know the whole story there as to his recovery. I'm not making excuses. It would have been, he chose Nelson on this day. Some people say, why isn't Smith Rowe play instead of Nelson? And that's them. I think we want to see speed in that area, and Smith Rowe doesn't seem to be a wide left option anymore. But there was a day, if Martinelli wasn't playing, Smith Rowe would play. That day seems to have changed. And so, but again, back to playing the academy kids, right? Didn't play Trossard, our £27 million signing. We played Nelson. So you can't win, can you? Well, you can win if you win. Then all your decisions look perfectly thought through and strategic. When you don't win, I'm afraid you get criticised.
Yeah, and it's, again, this goes back to a lot of the stuff that I just said at the top of the pod, but football is a sport where the team that puts the ball in the net winds up getting to decide how the game is going to be viewed and discussed and analyzed. And look, I don't want to make it sound like this was one-way traffic. I think in the first half, it almost was one-way traffic. Liverpool came back in the game well in the second half. And the thing they did is they just went long. They put a cluster of players on the Kiwior side. They went long and they were good.
Was it on the Kiwior side? Because I thought they moved Darwin.
Sorry, no, it was on the Ben White side. Yeah. My bad. I've got
they just diagged into that corner and ran up behind it, and one more duels. And the person that suffered in those duels was Odegaard, actually, because he wasn't quite getting the second ball, and they were quite clever. They lumped it onto Ben White's head and then made Odegaard not face their goal, but face his own goal, and then smashed into him. And he was the one that was most aggravated with the referee. Do you notice? He was trying to get his fouls, and he wasn't getting them. The ref was saying, "Play on, son. This is FA Cup. This is England. Get on your way." And he couldn't get it. He couldn't protect the ball, and that's where they got the momentum from. So they got the momentum from second balls. It wasn't beautiful play. It was just second balls around that area, and we didn't adjust to that quickly enough, actually. Again, hindsight's wonderful. When you watch a game, when they watch this game back, they're going to think, could we have maybe put Kai over onto that side rather than drop back on the left 8, put Kai over to that side, move Odegaard over to the left side, and then bring Eddie on. Maybe they'll go do something like that. We don't know. But Kai to take out the second ball and be more dual-centric on the right-hand side of our pitch would have worked maybe a bit better. But hey, look, I'm a genius when I've watched the tape, right, in a nice, relaxed way. So,
look, the goal that decides this game is an own goal, unlucky skim off the head of Kiwior. Like, it's fantastic delivery from Trent, and he is a fantastic player, a complete cheat code of a player that allows Liverpool to play direct, but without it feeling like they're lumping the ball forward, which is such a weapon. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I just add a bit on Trent? Because I thought he was fine in the first phase of the game. Was showing I do like
ruined
his running
by Martinelli on consecutive dribbles where he just gave up the byline.
This is where I was going. I think his running power has improved, particularly going forward. He's really got a bit of pace about him when he's going forward. But Martinelli came on and rinsed him, ran around him. And you know what Klopp did immediately? Was make a substitution, brought a young kid called Bradley, stuck him in behind him, and just said, you just do one-on-one on Martinelli. And the Martinelli, he went poof. Disappeared, didn't he? Disappeared again, right? So, and so again, I thought that was quite a smart use of resources. Okay, it was defensive, it was reactive to what we were doing well. But what do you do as a coach when you're getting beat? Do you just sit there and get beat, or do you react to where the danger's coming from? What Arsenal were doing, and I thought we reacted really, really well. He got a break on the first goal, maybe got a break on the second goal, but But it is what it is. That's football, right? We didn't make the breaks go our way down to our lack of conviction and letting things into our brains that need to be removed real quickly. And reminders need to be sent out to say, you do know how to kick a football and you do know how to do it really, really well. To stop messing about and start doing it. And it's very simple, this, mate. It's just finishing drill, repetition, repetition, repetition. Very simple until the mental fog disappears and everything becomes clear again, and that goal gets big and the goalkeeper looks small. That's what happens in football. When you're rubbish, mate, and you're worrying about things, Alisson looks like a giant and you can't see the net. And that's what happens when your confidence is a little bit undecided.
And I think it's also, like, I do think it is fatigue. Like, I think that's happening. Every single major Arsenal outfield player has played more minutes than every single major Liverpool outfield player, for example. They are benefiting. I know I said this so many times, so apologies, but they are benefiting from what we benefited from last season, being able to rotate in the Europa League, and using that extra that extra power to play more direct, to press, to do all the things they like to do. There is a chance. I mean, look, Liverpool now have a two-legged semifinal in the League Cup starting this Wednesday. They play every 3 days, basically the rest of the season now. They've got the extra round of the Europa League to worry about. They now have another FA Cup tie, which will move one of their league fixtures into a congested zone probably in April. We know how this stuff works. And, this may wind up being the thing that costs them when they need the legs at the end of the season. You don't know. And that's not me saying it's good to crash out of the cup. That's just me saying there's so many moving parts to football. It's hard to know what's going to matter most.
Yeah.
There is a part of me that wants to join in the hand-wringing and the panic and the we haven't bought strikers and Kai was a waste and really get worried and upset about this stuff. But there is a part of me that also feels that we're going to come back from Dubai, we're going to be rested, and we're going to start kicking it in the net the way we kicked it in the net last season. Because it's not like these are two different teams. The team that did the things it did last season in front of goal is the same group not doing those things this season. And that's a reminder that everything is small sample sizes in sports. This is the hard thing, right, with data. Data is meant to assess large samples. But we're talking about 3 games. It's a very small sample. We're talking about a season of 20 games. It's still a small sample. The fact is, we could come back from Dubai, have a little more power in our legs, start kicking the ball in the back of the net, and realize that there was never anything to worry about. Now, the opposite could happen and we could be screwed. Okay, I don't want to pretend that the only outcome is the sunny outcome, but Clive, we're 5 points off the top. We're playing just fine. We're still in the Champions League. I want to just hold fire a bit because I think if the players that we've seen do it before start firing in front of goal again, then it's way, way too soon to be doing some of the post-mortems I see. I see a lot of the kind of analysis right now that makes sense. Look, if 5 weeks from now, we're cut adrift from the title, we're in a top 4 battle and nowhere near the top, and we've been knocked out of the Champions League by Porto, a lot of the conversations being had now will absolutely be warranted then. But given where we are right now, it feels way too soon, especially given that one hot run of finishing could make this all look like a blip. And I'm not ready to get conclusive about any of this stuff yet.
Yeah, I mean, we don't tend to do that. Not this early stage. We have a period where you can mentally reset. I've been looking forward to this period for the players on their behalf for a long time now, because it's obvious they need it. And Mikel says something about minutes. He mentioned that one player last season was at this level of minutes. Now it's 14 or something like that. And so they've got the data. They know what's going on here. They know what's going on. It's just a matter of refining things for me. And what I think is really important, Elliot, is we don't beat ourselves. I mean, we're only fans. We can only support the team, right? So, but we almost create the environment by which the team exists. Now, every club has their own bubble to try to protect people from the exterior world that doesn't understand what goes on the interior, all the details. But it's very important that we as fans help create the environment where they can grow and they can still relax. Because a player that's worried and tense and nervous because he's worried about fan reaction is not likely to kick the centre of the ball in his laces. Do you know what I mean? And I did watching the game again yesterday. I wasn't there, so I haven't got the full context. but I did feel and hear a very supportive crowd. You know, there might have been some grumbling because it's a second home defeat in a row, and I may be completely wrong there.
If you want to boo it full time when you've been knocked out of the FA Cup at home, like be my guest. You know,
I sense the support still there. Do you know what I mean? When people get onto their keyboards, they say things, right? But they wouldn't say that in front of the players. Do you know what I mean? And they say things.
Well, that's the right way to do it, to be fair, right? Like if we want to get on a podcast or a website or a keyboard or the pub and we want to have a moan, that's fine at the ground. Try to create an environment where they can thrive. That's all.
Yeah, and from the outside world, people look at us and think, look at Arsenal, they're botting it again. They're botting, they can't score. They're botting it again. Let's have a laugh at them. If we fall into that trap, then that's exactly, we can't. We have to really be overly supportive, even though we're all petrified and worried. We have to almost throw that away and say, you know what, it's gonna come back. It is gonna come back. Because I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to say that Bukayo Saka's not going to re-find his form again. Or for Martinelli, or for Odegaard, or for Jesus. I'm not prepared to say it. They're too young, they're too good, and they've done it, and I've seen it in my own eyes. So they're going to come back. They are going to come back. We just got to wait for it.
Yeah, if you think this slump is real, then at least one of the things you think is that those players aren't as good as we thought they were. I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? Because this slump is driven primarily by not finishing our chances. And that's primarily the fault of the guys up front. And either this is really their level, this is who they are, or they're going to refine their level. Now, you're entitled to be like, I think this is who they are. We don't have enough options. They're shagged out. They're tired. We didn't build a big enough attack. We can get into all that. We'll do a full January sort of squad building transfer look on Thursday and throughout the week. We'll do an Onana scouting video over on Patreon. We'll do all kinds of stuff. We can get stuck into the January window properly. Got 2 weeks till our next game. Sadly, I am not getting to go to a warm weather place to put my feet up. Neither is Clive. Neither is Tim. Neither is Paul. So we will be here with you. We'll leave it there. Frustrating times, but I think we stand at a pivot point. If they come back with their shooting boots on and beat, Palace 5-0, then this is, I think almost immediately some of the fog will lift. If the issues in front of goal continue, then the frustrations will start to become more warranted because the season will be on the brink. So we'll see where we go from there. Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can bot me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. A couple weeks to figure it all out. Everybody, we love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Palace 0.